Now, it's been a few weeks. Our officiating guru, Peter Walton, is back. Peter, you timed it well. Interesting weekend, wasn't it? Particularly for those of you watching Spurs and Chelsea, as I know you were for British TV. The Giovani Lo Celso incident, the stamp on as Piliqueta. Let's talk about that, because I know initially your thought was that it wasn't a red card, but that was an opinion you later changed.
Yeah, I mean, Adrian, I was at the game and I saw the game and I saw the incident and automatically thought that Lo Celso was sort of trying to create some space between him and the ball and Piliqueta, and as a consequence came down on Piliqueta's shin. I didn't see it as a stamping action. So, yeah, so in real time in commentary, I, like Michael Oliver, the match referee, didn't see too much wrong with it. However, you know, subsequently, when we've seen the VAR pictures and we see the different angles, my view changed, and clearly Lo Celso's actions endangered the safety of the opponent, and as such, he should have received a red card.
And Peter, what did you make of almost the farcical sequence of events that followed, where they basically admitted they'd made a mistake a few minutes later?
Yeah, that's most unfortunate, to be honest with you. In terms of the communication, I can see what the authorities were trying to do. The authorities were trying to be open and transparent and say, hey, look, you know, we've made a mistake. Maybe their timing should have been a little bit more acute. Maybe they should have held that information back till post-match, when everybody then can say, you know, well, what do we think? And we can go from there. But if it's just spin back a moment or so, you know, in the actual game itself, and you said, you know, that the farce, well, one thing that could have cleared up quite quickly was to ask Michael Oliver, the match referee, to just go across to the monitor and adjudicate and have a look himself. We speak about the time it would take to do that, but he was no more than maybe 10, 15 yards from the actual monitor itself. And so maybe, with hindsight, he should have gone over and had a look at that monitor.
A lot of people would like to see that happen on a regular basis. Overall, Peter, still can't get away from this feeling. How has VAR gone so badly wrong in the Premier League?
Adrian, I don't want to say it's gone badly wrong, because it hasn't gone badly wrong. You know, VAR has made a positive impact on the game throughout the world. We're getting decisions corrected now, and correct decisions made, that last year and the season before we wouldn't have got. What we've had are some high-profile mistakes, errors, and clear judgment errors. And that's what the issue is, especially in England. Yeah, what can we do? Well, first of all, you know, VAR was always shown to be for clear and obvious errors from the match referee, or missed from the match referee, and not as a foul finder. So the VAR persons shouldn't be looking to identify a perfect match. They should be looking to identify clear and obvious errors. Now, we can go back to Lo Celso and say that was a clear and obvious error, which it was. So how do you look at that? You train, you educate, you show people the clips. You actually get those referees together to make sure that on a regular basis they're looking at them, so they can come to some kind of consensus. I do feel in the Premier League in England they need a lot more training, a lot more exposure, and perhaps they look at outside of the group they've got at the moment using VAR. I noticed the group they've got at the moment is very small, is very insular. And sometimes it's not a good referee who makes a good VAR. You know, so we may be looking at a skill set here and widening that dimension, so people outside can actually have an input as well.
Yeah. In fact, that VAR operator then went and did another game later that day, didn't he? What's your reaction, Craig, to what Peter's saying? I mean,
well, Pete knows I like him. I love Peter. But after the weekend he's had and his colleagues, he's taken himself away for at least a month to some island and waited till all this blew over. Because let me give you an example, Pete. Stevie said it on Saturday, I think, on this show. Stevie's missus saw the incident and said that's a red card. Right? Yeah. That's how blatantly obvious it was. So we can talk about training until the cows come home. And how to your point there, a good referee doesn't make a good VAR operator. So you're telling me that a qualified FIFA official isn't going to be able to look at well, it seems that way, look at a monitor and look at a replay and make a qualified decision? We're in big trouble. This is nothing to do with the actual technology itself. This is to do with incompetent officials. And I do feel sorry for Michael Oliver, because I've always stated the match should be refereed by, the final decision should lie with the match official, the match delegate for the day. That was Michael Oliver. It wasn't. It was Mr. Coote, and he looked at that and thought it wasn't a red card. It was absolutely astonishing.
Look, Craig, I'm not going to argue with you, because what you're saying is perfectly acceptable and perfectly right. All I'm saying is that sometimes, match referees are good at decision makings on the hoof, on the field, in amongst it. And sometimes when you're looking at a TV monitor, you may be looking for too much or too less. So it's a different skill set altogether, and something that's in a VAR has found throughout the world. In other competitions, you'll see, referees who may not referee on that particular league acting as a VAR. But going back to the game itself, and one big thing that's missing in the English Premier League at the moment is the fact that Michael Oliver, who you've already said is a good referee, should be allowed and should be encouraged to referee the game right through to the end.
So why is Mike Riley, the head of the PGMOL, why is Mike Riley not instructing his officials to do so?
Well, one of the reasons he gave at the start of the season was because the Premier League, in his words, not mine, was played at a pace that he doesn't want to disrupt and doesn't want the flow of game to be disrupted by referees going over to that monitor. My counter-argument to that is the fact that it wouldn't take so long to go over to that monitor, especially on Saturday when he's 10 yards away from it. It wouldn't take so long for Michael Oliver to make that decision. Now, if Michael goes over to the monitor and says, yep, I agree, it's not a red card decision, the people, the crowd, the audience know who to blame or know who to vent their anger at. At the moment, what's happening is somebody elsewhere is taking that decision away from the match referee. I think that's wrong. I think they should home in on the match referee. As it says in the IFAB protocol, the match referee should be seen to be making the final decision.
Mike Riley surely has to be under pressure, because at the end of the day, regardless of what your job is, we all have a leader. We all have somebody who's in charge. We all have somebody who has to put things wrong or put things right that are wrong. Mike Riley, as you said, number one, decided that referees shouldn't go straight to the monitor for whatever reasons he suggested. We're now nearly towards the end of the season, and since the very beginning of the season, every man and his dog has said the referee should be going to the monitor, but yet the leader still hasn't made that decision. And the leader, at the weekend, saw one of his men make an absolute pig's ear of a decision, and this leader decided that that person, who clearly isn't ready to make those types of decisions, was then put on the next game. What leader does that?
Pete, I'm not in the business of bashing referees, because I did it plenty when I was a player. In fact, I did it too much. And I know how difficult. I know how difficult it is. And when that recent nonsense with Bournemouth and Dan Gosling and others having a go at John Moss for having a little bit of banter, we all absolutely pasted them. So we're not doing this for the sake of it. But I find it incredulous that we have these qualified officials who seem incapable of looking at a replay. And you touched on this months ago, how maybe some people will struggle with it. And I thought it was a bit of a joke at the time, but it seems to have come true, Adrian, that some of these Premier League officials are looking at replays and they're not understanding what they're seeing.
So can I ask you a question? Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What do you think the standard of your Premier League referee is? Because at the end of the day, we need to have referees. And of course, we all want them to be top class. But are we saying that basically we don't have enough top class people either refereeing the games or behind the VAR, and that's just simply the case? Is that what we're saying?
No. Well, what I'm saying is I don't think we've got enough VARs of a high quality to go around. I mean, you already mentioned the fact that we used the same VAR on Saturday twice, once at the Chelsea-Tottenham game, where we've all accepted that there was a mistake made, and then fast forward 2 or 3 hours, the Leicester-Manchester City game, it was the same VAR. Now, the issue is, do we have enough VARs going around? And clearly we didn't on Saturday. And that is an issue that I would like to be addressed. And as I said earlier on in this conversation, I think we should widen the scope to look who makes good VARs, and it's not necessarily referees. And I just want to come back on one quick thing. On Saturday afternoon, I also watched another game from the Bundesliga. I think it was Mönchengladbach and Hoffenheimer. Felix Breis, a referee, was told about a potential handball What did he do? He went straight over to the monitor, looked at the monitor. Yes, he decided it was a handball, went back, gave a penalty kick, and nobody said a word because he was seen to be taking the stance and he was seen to be taking that leadership role, as you mentioned earlier on, Steve. So maybe that's what we should be doing.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.